Hello, hello. My name is Kayla Brick. I am an Upwork coach and a professional illustrator. Today we are talking about biggest mistakes people make as beginners on Upwork, specifically with your profile. So let's break this thing down a little bit. Main thing that I noticed with beginners when they first start on here is they are obsessed with getting everything perfect the first time. So when you go through the onboarding process, it has a 24 to 48-hour onboarding process where they ask you a series of questions about your description, your work history, all that kind of stuff. And most people get caught up in that process trying to make things perfect the first time, which I very much in the camp of ready, fire, aim kind of freelancing. I believe in just getting it done as quickly as possible because I am a recovering perfectionist myself. So focus whenever you're first creating your profile, just get it done, put a description together. This video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to optimize things a little bit to make things a bit more optimized for Upwork's algorithm specifically. But don't worry about things like that in the beginning. Try and get everything perfect the first time. Just get through the onboarding process and then you can start making things more quote unquote perfect. Let's talk about the various things that I notice whenever people put a profile on here together. The headline and description is probably the first thing that we start to run into issues with is we have a headline that doesn't fully describe your job title and what you do on Upwork. We ideally want to use this little headline here, to target various keywords in Upwork's algorithm. So you want to target the keywords they actually use to describe who you are, not what you use as a illustrator or graphic designer or web designer, whatever you are. You don't want to use those words that are a little bit more focused in your niche, your thing that you do, to describe yourself. It doesn't really help Upwork's algorithm identify you. Similar issues with the description that I see happening is that we have a description that is a full dissertation, a full novel from you, and it's very, very me, I. This is all the great things that I've ever done, all of my accolades just sort of stacked on top of each other for a description, which doesn't really help understand who you are, how you help with the thing that they need done. So it's better to keep things super short, very short and sweet if you can. And then we want to put as many keywords in this thing as we can. I have other videos on talking about finding keywords in Upwork's algorithm and using their search function, the keywords that they have in job listings, all that stuff, and plugging them into these descriptions. So I'll let you go look at those other videos if you want to learn more about that. But we really want to use this time to talk to both the algorithm and also the humans that are on our profile reading this thing. So you don't want to have this thing be leaning towards more algorithmic, where it's very keyword focused and doesn't really sound like normal sentences. And you don't want it to be too personal, where you're talking to them like they're a friend and very almost like you're talking about all the history that you've ever done, every job that you've ever done. It just doesn't really help them understand why they need to hire you. So what I really like is something that kind of balances both of those things. So what I help with is really incredible for talking to the algorithms. You can just list keywords and it just sounds super normal and natural for anybody who's reading it. So structurally, we really just want to have a short description of who you are, what you do, and then a what I help with. And if you want to go the extra mile, something like a who I help, and then list out all of your ideal clients. If you don't know who they are, then you can leave that off for now. But as you start to know who that person is, then you can start listing them out, and then they can immediately say, that's my thing. I need help with that. And also, that's me. When they read that in that list about who you tend to like to work with, the more you can have them have that little light bulb go off in their brain, the better. And last, probably the most important line in this thing is what we call in marketing a call to action. So this is just a line that says, hey, I want you to do a certain thing. And then we want to have them take a certain set of actions, ideally. So in this case, it's usually going to be, I want you to look at my portfolio, and then I want you to reach out to me. So I usually write it however you feel makes sense for you. You just want it to basically say, hey, I want you to take a look at my profile, take a look at my portfolio, and then if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, depending on what the contents are of your portfolio, then next step is send a private message to me, which is the basic functionality of Upwork's system. In other situations, like on Fiverr, you would want to have them go through the various tiers on the gig. You know, if there's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, you would want to do that. So that would be the call to action in that case. But on Upwork, it's to actually send a message to you. Because a lot of times clients are new to Upwork. They don't know how to use the platform. Oftentimes, it's one of Upwork's challenges. Their interface is not particularly easy to work with for freelancers or for clients, unfortunately. They are working on it, and we are grateful for that, but they haven't quite made it as intuitive as Fiverr, who they do win in that category. But this is the one thing that makes you stand out as a freelancer on here, is if you give them some direction, because even experienced people on Upwork, clients on here, they don't always know what to do next. And if you are the person that helps them know what to do next, that can make you stand out over somebody who has more testimonials or reviews than you do. Another mistake I notice a lot of times with profiles is beginners don't even know about, oftentimes, these specialized profiles that Upwork allows us to have over here. So we have our all work, which is our most general profile. So it's going to have all of your portfolios, every single review, testimonial you've ever gotten. It's just kind of a catch-all for all the things that you've ever done on Upwork. And it's the first profile you're ever going to get on here. Perfectly functional for most situations. If you never had a specialized profile created, it's not going to be the end of the world if you always use your general profile, but you're missing out on the opportunity to target a very specific kind of client. And that's why I like these little specialized profiles here, which Upwork allows you to use. This is basically the same structure of a general profile. So you're going to have the same headline, same description, same opportunity to add a portfolio or anything like that. But you can just use them to target a certain kind of client. So let's just say you're a graphic designer and you want to target a certain kind of graphic design client that you tend to work with, somebody who wants maybe more keynote related things that are a little bit more on the marketing side of stuff, then you could use one of these profiles to target that and talk to that kind of client. So you can tailor your descriptions to talk to them specifically. You could have your portfolio only be that particular portfolio that targets that kind of client, that sort of thing, so that the client feels like you're not a jack of all trades, like you only do one specific thing. Even if you end up doing 3, 4, 5 things on Upwork, they won't know that because you're only going to show them this one profile. So Upwork gives us 2 of them. I wish they would give us more, but they haven't yet, unfortunately. But Upwork gives us 2, so definitely take advantage of that. Go through these, add stuff to them, make them target a certain kind of client. If you don't know who you're trying to target, don't worry about that at all. Just use these to target maybe a subsection of what you already do. So for me, illustration wise, I sometimes will do a specialized profile that targets comic related things, character design based things. I could do portrait work, subsections of something that I already do and want to talk to that very specific kind of client. Illustration, comics, character design, stuff like that. If you want to try a different kind of work, let's say in this case I have a voiceover talent thing that I was trying very briefly, you could do that too. You could do copywriting. If you want to just dip your toe into a certain niche or job title and you want to just see what that feels like, then using a specialized profile is a really good way to do that. All right, so let's talk about portfolios. A lot of times whenever someone just starts their Upwork journey on here and they just create a profile, they put just all of their portfolios on Upwork and they don't really worry about the structure of them. There's not a whole lot of things that you need to worry about when it comes to portfolios. The main things that we need to design them is make sure that the naming conventions are not the actual title of the project that you did. So we don't want to call it something specific to that thing that you made, because the client who's clicking on this is not going to know what those things are. Even if it's a popular TV show, it could be a commercial, it could be the name of a book that you worked on, characters that you designed for video games, that whatever specifically you do. But from a client's perspective, they have no idea what that thing is. So we always, always, always want to have these be keywords, ideally, but also probably a little more heavily weighted. We want to make sure that they're very easily clickable by a client. So you want to put your head in their mindset when they're on your profile for the first time and think, okay, what is this client immediately going to know is my thing? And you want them to just immediately see it and know that's my thing. So in this case, character design, character artwork. Anybody who wants character design stuff is immediately going to know character artwork is their thing. If they're doing children's book stuff, they immediately know that's their thing. Let's just say you were doing web design related stuff. You could put a portfolio that just says landing pages. You could put one that just says something for newsletters. You could put something that's very segmented like that. And if you already have a portfolio, I highly recommend that you divvy it up into each of these different categories. So if you have, let's say, like for example, I had no children's book artwork when I was first doing this stuff, but I noticed on Upwork there was a clear desire for it. So I took my existing portfolio and I just took pieces of it and I just threw it on there and called it children's book work. The client has no idea when you made the thing. They don't know what the thing was for. They don't know if it was paid or not. That's just in your own mind. I personally was extremely worried about putting work that I had done in high school on here because I thought they're going to know that it's not real and it's unpaid and it's not my best work. And I still get, I mean, honestly, at this point, I still get many people, clients bringing me work that I did in high school that they want me to do almost identical to that piece of work. And I think it's real. I always think it's really funny because many times I don't even really want to look at those pieces of artwork because they're so old. But the clients don't know that. They just look at it and think, I like it, or they don't like it. And that's really the extent of it. I think a lot of times because we're professionals in the thing that we do, we scrutinize it and we're thinking about it from our own perspective. And so we're worried about the quality level, but our brain is so focused on the details of those things because we know what is quote unquote good and not good in this when it comes to portfolios. So you're not dealing with other professionals oftentimes in your particular field. You're dealing with somebody who likes something or doesn't like something, and that's the full extent of it. They are free from the burden of knowing what is high quality or not. Sometimes they may just listen to it and think, let's just say that it was some kind of audio based thing. They'll listen to it and think that's really good or really not what I'm looking for, just purely based on whether they like it or not. Visually, they may look at your design work and think I like it or I don't like it. They're not going to know exactly why it's good or why it's not good intuitively. And that's a blessing, honestly. Having people who are just not aware of the back end details of how things work is so much better, so much easier to deal with than somebody who, let's say, was a professional designer or knew exactly how graphic design worked and they knew the exact ways that things were being built in Illustrator, or they knew the back end ways that we make this stuff. They don't know how long things take. They don't know what is good or not good. They just know if they like it or not. And that's kind of really, really wonderful whenever we're creating portfolios. So in my little world of freelancing, I don't want you to rebuild anything. I don't want you to make new portfolios. We're not doing that here because this is ready, fire, aim. This is get it done, get it live, and start getting paid, because that's really what matters here. It's not having a good portfolio. It's about having one that gets you work at the end of the day. So I want you to take your existing portfolio, whatever you have, and then segment it into things that you know will be very clickable for clients and just call it a day. Other things that people make mistakes on is that we have testimonials. This is the very first thing I want you to worry about on Upwork. Whenever we have the opportunity to be on here, the first thing, the temptation, is to go and start sending proposals, worrying about proposals to an extent that you don't send them. You either don't send them or you're going for the really high budget stuff, super competitive stuff. And I want you to, for the first couple weeks, maybe month that you're on here, I want you to focus on just getting 5-star reviews. and don't worry about anything else. Make sure that they're in a decent budget range. They're not going to kill you. I actually have another video that talks a little bit about how to get your first job on Upwork. I highly recommend that one. It talks all about how to get reviews and how to get the very first couple of jobs on here. This is the most difficult hurdle when it comes to creating a profile on here. I thought, huge mistake, was thinking I'm going to throw a profile together. I'm going to make my hourly rate 100 an hour or 80 an hour or whatever it was at the time, and put my portfolio on here. I'm going to call it all kinds of crazy naming conventions that only make sense to me. But I thought my thinking on this was that my portfolio is good enough that a client on here, at the time I worked for 2 years on Fiverr, and so I thought my portfolio is good enough. I'm getting work. That's going to translate on Upwork. And I'm here to tell you that this is just not the case. People, even if your portfolio is really, really good, they're not going to trust you the same way that they're going to trust somebody else who has more reviews than you do. And that's just unfortunately the fact, because it's almost its own weird little environment where nothing exists outside of it. And I think Upwork likes how that feels and is, but unfortunately true. Even if you've been working on Fiverr or Freelancer or any of the other platforms and you have tons of reviews on those, it almost doesn't matter. Upwork is its own place where you have to start from scratch and get these testimonials, and they are probably the most important thing. And you need at least, I want to say at least two. I think I'd comfortably say at least two reviews on here, and that's really going to help you start competing. So, mistake is thinking that your portfolio is going to do all the heavy lifting. It's not. It will not do it. You need to focus on getting these first couple testimonials to actually have a real good shot of making consistent money on here. So, for beginner wise, this has got to be your target. And I have a video on that, so go check that out. But just, it's not too difficult. You just have to switch your mindset a little bit to stop doing the competitive stuff. You have to get these testimonials first. The other thing, the last thing I'll talk about here, is the skills section. This is probably, I don't want to say the most important thing. It's definitely in the top three. Skills are essentially on Upwork basically tags. Tags are just keywords. It's all kind of the same thing. Basically, we want to go on Upwork's job listings, their search functions, to get the actual tag language, keyword language that Upwork is using internally, so that you're communicating to the algorithm. Upwork can't look at the contents of these. They can't really look at anything that you're giving it on the back end. I mean, aside from this stuff, it can look through this and pick out the keywords in here. So like Illustrator is a keyword, photo editor is a keyword, illustration is a keyword. That's all I can use to identify you. There's nothing else here. I can't look at the stuff in here and actually know who you are and what you do and who to put you in front of, unfortunately. So you have to give it tons of information with its own internal language, which in this case is keywords, in order to help it understand how to do that. So using this stuff here is good. Description's really good. But the primary one when it comes to profiles is this stuff right here. And I want you to go, one of the first things you do as a beginner on here is go through job listings and create huge lists of the tags and just plug them into your descriptions and into your skills section. And don't go too far off into other niches if possible. For example, when I do illustration, I can sometimes veer off into editing related stuff. I could sometimes go off into video game related things and coding related tags. And that can sometimes confuse the algorithm on who you are. So just keep it very, what I like to call umbrella tags. So the most top-down version of who you are and what you do. Don't get into the specifics too much. So like, for example, top-down for me, illustration, drawing, concept art, if you really want to get very top-down. Stuff under that would be storyboarding, comics. Stuff that's underneath those would be subsections, and those are keywords as well. I have other videos on how to find these guys more specifically, so go check that out. But make sure that when you're putting these together, don't go too far off in other directions where you're going to confuse the algorithm into thinking that you do 12,000 different things. Just keep it very, very surface level So that is the biggest mistakes I see on here. There's a little bit stuff I could go into on making sure your hourly rate is a certain way. There's some back end stuff with messaging and all that stuff as well. There's various stuff on the side here. Most of it doesn't really matter too much. There's consultations, there's extra stuff, but don't worry about that, any of that for now. Just focus on getting your descriptions, your headlines, your portfolio, and your tags just dialed in, and then start sending proposals out to clients, and you can optimize from there. But anyway, I hope you guys found this helpful, and I will see you guys in the next one.